Yo, GenKaan here again with the third video on threats, stuff that your opponents will have to find answers to. This time I'm going to cover red and white. After this one is a shorter one that covers multicolored threats or only multicolored threats. And that's about the threat part. After this I will go to either maybe ramp parts or card advantage. I'm not sure yet. Let's get into it. The first card is Arcane Bombardment, arguably on par with 1,000-Year Storm, with less demands on explosive turns, so big upside there. 1,000-Year Storm is in about 6% of all decks, according to EDH Rec, so it's about 3 times as common as this one, and it's dual colored, so this is only single colored, so this one would go into more decks, I would assume. The decks who would run this would also run 1,000-Year Storm on top of this, so basically both going to both decks, but this one also finds a home in like Rectos, Spellslinger, etc. It's around €3, so a bit on the expensive side, but yeah, if this doesn't get answered, it's GG, stay salty, combo time, combo central, just go off, king. Next up we have Eltural Survivors. A clean 4-drop, kinda has it all, really. It has Trample, it has Myriad, and it grows pretty good in late game, or scales pretty good into late game. On top of usually having one opponent that does not have 4 power or does not want to kill this guy, you can politics your way into a good attack and getting in for damage on everyone. So the one with the most life maybe would let this guy live, taking 4 or 5 damage to pressure everyone else at the table. So again, it scales very well and puts in a lot of work at 4 mana. Next up is a Dragon Spirit in Ryusei the Falling Star. Again, no one's surprised that the dragons from olden times are good, and Kamigawa dragons are no exception. Reasonably statted, 6 mana 5/5 with flying, on top of cleaning up nicely on death. So this guy cleans up with a sweeper for 5 damage, takes out basically all tokens and all go wide strategies. Pair this guy up with lifelink, and it's like 5 times the amount of creatures in play. And if you have Sanguine Bond or Veto, this is pretty much at least 1 or 2 people dying. Next up we have a clean card in Avatar of Fury. It's a 8 mana 6/6 flying with fire breathing. That's not great, but we're talking commander here. And 7 lands is basically turn 3 for a Simic deck. So you have turn 3, 6/6 flying with fire breathing. It's, this one you need to run if you're running honest decks against Sultai or Simic. Next up is Mob Rule, a card I think was more popular before I started. And as I see it right now, it's a 6 mana, I take out the biggest threats. And maybe, that's on the low end. On the high end, it's basically 6 mana, I win the game. Do a copy or like double vision or 1,000-Year Storm or anything like that, double it up, and you basically take out the biggest threats, the 2 biggest threats, and you're left with a clean 1-on-1 with board advantage. Next up we have Sin Prodder. A clean 3-drop with pseudo card advantage on the front that pairs well with graveyard stuff and discard shenanigans, and potentially politically make sure you hit your interactions. Next up is Rekindling Phoenix, a reasonable 4-drop, a flyer that's pretty hard to kill, a good blocker, enables some nice sacrifice stuff like Deadly Dispute or Village Rites and stuff, and is sub $1 or sub €1. So I think this one is a super nice include in most deck that run red. Next up we have Skargan Hellkite, a 5 mana 4/4 flying haste or a 5 mana 5/5 flyer with a fire breathing sort of thing. You can deal damage to any, or divide as you choose among any number of creatures or targets even, so you can shoot players as well. It's on the weaker side, but I think it's a cool creature, it's a cool dragon, and I run a Jond build with Jorlock, and this has put in a lot of work, taking out basically small creatures and small commanders that enters after a board wipe and stuff. So yeah, for a half a euro, I think this one puts in a lot of work. At 5 mana even. Next up is Immolating Soul Eater. Ever gotten your opponents to like 5 or 6 health? Well, this guy takes care of that. Pairs up with stuff like Thiever's Tool, making it unblockable, and like Bedlam, making it every creature unblockable. And you slap this guy with lifelink, and you can just pump all your red mana and all your life into this guy and getting half back. So basically it's pay 1 life, deal 1 damage. And if you're higher on life, then you basically take out your opponent. I had this guy in a Voltron build, and it puts in work. This is a beast for 2 mana. Next up we have Squee, Dubious Monarch. So I do like my 3-drops a lot. I think they have a lot of impact on the game. If a 3-drop can drop turn 2 or turn 3, it's going to make a huge difference and just put the tempo on your side. And Squee is a nice 3-drop. It's 3 power on haste with split on 2 bodies that scales or grows with the ability to recur himself. So I think this one under €1 is a super nice pickup even for most red decks. Next up we have Stalking Vengeance, a really nasty bomb. And I think this guy had his glory days before I started playing because he has at least 10,000 decks in his name. I mentioned, I think in the last video, overcommitting to a board you're winning is seldom a good option, but reverse that and commit all you want, because now it's time to commit to the board, and if someone wants to sweep, I hope they have more life than you have power, because that's what's going to happen. Like, you shoot me, I shoot you, we end stuff here. And yeah, it's a great creature. Next up we have Sarkhan's Unsealing. You know, dropping big creature is fun, and this one makes it even more fun. Comparing to Warstorm Surge, which you have to do because there are such similar cards, I think it's fair or fine to run both, especially if you're running like Gruul Stompy. And I like Unsealing more because it comes out earlier and will start do damage. Also, you don't really get the full advantage of Warstorm Surge, because people generally remove it because they see it as a huge threat. And generally I think it's at least on par, and Warstorm Surge being ran in like 5 times as many decks, I think that's unreasonable. Next up we have Devilish Valet, the devil that didn't really take off. I don't really see why this guy didn't take off though, because it's a monster. Like, you can't keep this guy on board because just a little bit of power-ups, a little bit of equipment, and a Scoot Swarm again. Scoot Swarm is in 10% of decks, guys. 10% of decks will turn this guy to just I kill someone. And with haste as well, he has a lot going for him. It's just silly. With Scoot Boy, it's silly. Shatterfang is a fantastic partner, although you have to run Jund, but this one with Shatterfang is a beast. I'm running this in my Kit Kanto deck, and I never really gotten full value, but I've killed, I think, 2 or 3 people in like 20 games with this guy. Just the damage, man. The damage will be there. Trust me, guys, this one is a great card. Pick it up now for like 20 cents. Come on, guys. Moving over to white, we have Eidolon of Countless Battles. A nice 3-drop that does work, scales with creatures, scales with auras, and can be put on your commander, bestowed on your commander as an aura, and go in for commander kill with some evasion like flying or trample. This could put in some serious work. A huge bonus as well is if it is bestowed on a different creature, this guy will move off and become a creature on its own. So if you run into a sweeper, you will still be left with a 1/1 that scales with auras and other creatures. Next up is an expensive enchantment in white called Crescendo of War. It's a finisher for sure, And if you drop this on a board you're winning, or where you can produce the most blockers, you are going to make your opponent sweat for sure. At around 7 to 8 euros, it is outside my budget really in most of my decks. I'm mentioning this card because it's going to be reprinted eventually, and when it is, it's going to crash in price. It will probably hit 1 or 2 euros, and once it does, I will pick up a playset of it because it's a fantastic card, and it's also a fun card. And yeah, keep this on your watch list, and this one will for sure end games. Next up is a sweet 3-drop in Archetype of Courage, a white enchantment creature with relevant creature types as human and soldier. This guy makes life super easy and pretty hard to attack you. Basically, your opponent will need to go wide or have a massive trampler, because you will deal your combat damage first always. And having the relevant creature type and enchantment subtype on it, it's just super nice for €1. I run this in my Daxos enchantment deck. It's all-star for sure, making it super hard to attack you. Next up we have Custody Soulcaller, a nice 3-drop and a mini Sunny T with some conditions. Works with humans, also cleric for the party mechanic, and has a nice spot that's basically centered around recursion. The budget aspect of this card is fantastic, and it will put in a lot of work dropping at turn 3. And each attack opponent will have a 4/5 attack in them, so it's not super easy to kill either. Pairs super well with cards like Adeline, just auto-attacking each opponent each combat. So yeah, this is a super nice 3-drop in white with the recursion aspect on the back end. Next up we have Radiant Destiny, great inclusion for most tribal decks, and as far as Anthem goes, this one puts in a lot of work. Also running this in my Daxos deck, and has put in some serious work with spirits, leaving me with blockers and attackers, giving pressure up while also providing some nice Anthem effect, and also experience counters when it enters. So this one is, yeah, for sure a solid card. As far as Anthem goes, this one is pretty high on my list, and at sub €1, I think this is a fantastic card. Here we have another 3-drop in Hallowed Spirit Keeper. 3/2 vigilance that has some wipe protection on it. On death it scales with your graveyard, so in like an Extus deck, maybe some sacrifice theme, aristocrats theme, this one will put in a lot of work. I'd also see this one in an Absent deck, maybe with like Pitiless Plunderer and Shatterfang. You know, this one is going to excel in that deck as well. Also, huge bonus, the tokens it creates has flying, so keep that in mind as well. Next we have a multi-function card in Yasmal Goldmane. It's a 4-mana 4/4 with First Strike, making it a fine blocker, on top of being a cat and a warrior to pretty relevant creature types. And for 5 mana you can make a massive buff that could take out a player. Pairs again a card that's in Template decks, you all know it's Goody Boy. Pairs super nice with that one as well. And yeah, I'd run this on any go wide budget deck. Okay guys, listen, mirrors are cool. So Mirrorsmith, maybe not a bomb, maybe not an aspect in the relation to the other cards that I put here, but it does put in work, has great value, pairs up with like Ashnod's Altar and like all the sacrifice outlets. I'm running this one in my Oskir Mir tribal deck, and you know, you always get some nice blockers out of it. Also avoid damage. It costs tempo, but I think in the long run you are in a better position for it. And it's a nice addition to a go wide artifact deck, also fantastic in the Myr with the new commanders that's coming out. So I think this will put in a lot of work. And next up we have Hero of Precinct 1. I guess some sort of reference to Hunger Games maybe. Anyways, it's a multicolored tribal human and warrior. So super high potential of this card in your aristocrats deck if you go wide using more multicolored cards like Mortify, D-Spark. There's a lot of great cards in Orso that would benefit this one a lot. Also, overall run of the game, it generates a lot of blockers and it doesn't cost anything extra. So you have a 2-mana 2/2, comes out early, and will give you a lot of value over the course of a whole game. Again, also relevant creature type, human and warrior. I really like this card. I think it's way underplayed. Next up we have a different Modern Horizons 2 card that I think went under the radar in Nykthos Paragon. Out to include, I would say, in any life gain decks. A little overcosted, but it compensates fairly quickly and is a very nice scalable buff. If you can gain lives on opponents' turns as well, this one will turn any deck crazy real fast. I see this ran in like something like a Celestia's counters, or maybe banned bullshit kind of deck. That yeah, I really think this card is way underplayed and is super strong. Next up we have Pulse Mage Advocate. And this might not look like a fantastic card. It might look sort of weak, like you're returning stuff to your opponent's hands and only getting 1 reanimation, but you do get it instant speed. So like, where does the value really come from? And coming from experience where I've seen this card played in a deck, seen it ran twice, both times, basically what you did was you return someone's like lands from their graveyard to their hands, or like returning 3 lands to their opponent's hand at their end step, just forcing them to discard 1 or 2 back, or just having a handful of lands. It's just pointless. You're really giving nothing really back. On top of having the option of giving someone a sweeper back or interaction back, saying like if you run this interaction piece, you get to pick your own card or whatever, pick another card. So this one has a lot of political value, a lot of like the high-end potential of this, getting reanimation instant speed. This one is super strong. Trust me, at like €0.50 in 1,000 decks. Come on, guys. This one is a beast. Trust me on this one. Next up, we are back in New Capenna with Rabble Rousing. And I've seen this card in a few decks. I ran this in my Kit Kanto Go Wide Naya Tokens deck, and it is a beast. I would run this even without the Hideaway. I would run this card. That's how good it is. Like Cathar's Crusade, sure you double the amount of tokens you get, but you have to create the tokens. This one is you attack. Like if you can attack, it's going to go crazy. And also it creates blockers. So the tokens you're creating will be left back as blockers. So this one pairs super well with like Purpose, God of the Forge, or wait, the one with the ETB ping for 2 damage, like Impact Tremors, Goblin Bombardment, Scoot Swarm, and just, yeah, this one is insane. It does not take a lot for this one to really, really go off. Alright, yeah, so this one is a bit weird. This one I will understand that you're like looking at the card and you're like, what the heck am I going to do with this one? And this one is for a very specific deck. So I guess you can get a lot of value from stuff like a Naya, maybe not Naya, but Celestia, Enchantress, or the deck I'm running, this one is in Daxos. It's an enchantment deck, so it's just so much flexibility in this card. Because with Daxos, it's Orso, so it's Orso Enchantress core. And the shell opens up to a lot of options where you can use your commander for 3 mana to create a enchantment creature token, and on top of that, when the token enters, you can choose either you flip a land, so basically reducing the cost of creating tokens by 1, which is huge, 30%, or you can save your commander, or if someone attacking you with a creature with trample or whatever, you're looking at lethal, you can just create a token and flicker it away. They have boots, no problem. You just flicker the boots away. Now it's targetable again. The only thing it can't target is enchantments, and who's running enchantments? Like, not that many, and like auras and stuff is fine, but if the creature is not an enchantment, you can flicker the creature. So it sort of goes around everything, sort of, maybe, kinda. Also, it goes pseudo infinite with Sun Titan plus Seal of Removal. So Seal of Cleansing or whatever, like a seal. So you play Sunny, trigger on the stack, sacrifice Seal, Seal goes into graveyard, resolve Sunny T, Sunny T brings back the Seal, Seal ETBs, it flickers a creature, flickers Sunny T, and at the end step he will go back in. So like every turn you get a free damage, like a free destroy a creature, destroy enchantment, destroy artifact. So if you're running white plus, even if you run Seal of Cleansing, I think, or whatever the white one is, the Disenchant Seal, you will have instant speed, end of turn, like, yeah, just removal. On top of like Angelic Renewal, you will just, there's a lot of things you can do. Auramancer, you get pseudo, like all enchantments from your graveyard to your hand and stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do with this guy, and really runs well with like sagas as well. If you have a Sunny T or a recursion engine, like, yeah, again, Auramancer, you can do a lot. You can get a lot of value from this card, and at like 20 cents, and it's only running like 1800 decks, like 2000 decks. Like this should be in every Enchantress deck, I would say. Like this is so good. And now we're here with the last card, the Master Trinketeer. It's a fair 3-drop that's an anthem for Thopters and Servos. That's also a monodump. So it's a fair card. I like this one in like an Oscar tokens deck, or go wide Servo Thopter kind of thing. Or maybe an Azorius tokens deck, or like Artifact Azorius deck with like maybe Sai and maybe like Dovin and stuff. Like I like this card. It's a bit underplayed, but I think it's too fair in the current meta. And there we have it, the third video. I was planning on creating this or finishing this one way sooner, but like life happened and I'm studying and stuff. Like, yeah, I just got stuff to do, and I have one more video left. I think that will be a shorter one, using, I think, multicolored is the last video I have in the tube for threats and bombs, and hopefully that will not take like a month to create. So stay tuned for that. Up next, more bombs, more threats, more ways to win the game. Peace, guys.